Everyone, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tawasin, Kaikut, Coquitlam, and our Inuit and Métis peoples. They have a profound connection to the land and water that surrounds our great city of Surrey. Events like this simply would not happen without sponsorship support, so a great round of applause for our co-presenting sponsors, A Little Bud and Inspired Cannabis. Our supporting sponsors are Platinum Projects and Mission Cannabis. And our community sponsor, thank you to Seed and Stone. Our ongoing supporting progress partners of the Surrey Board of Trade are BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada, the law firm of Fasken, Scotiabank, Western Community College, and the Chambers of Commerce Group Insurance Plan, represented by SNF Benefits. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. Some special guests in the audience that I'd like to recognize. Representing the MLA for Surrey Panorama, Jenny Sims, is Gary Greywall. Gary, thank you so much for being here. City of Surrey Councillor Mike Bowes. City of White Rock Councillor Bill Lawrence. He's on the way. And City of Langley Councillor Leith White. Thanks so much for being here today. The Surrey Board of Trade, we are an independent, not-for-profit organization, and we're a concierge of connections focused on instigating change at the different levels of government through our government advocacy. We have an international trade center where we're creating global business connections for local businesses, a business center where we're starting up and scaling up businesses, and especially with our second location to come at the Health and Technology District, focused on scaling up and starting up tech businesses and creating collaborative educational partnerships to really address our workforce and labor shortages that our businesses are facing. The legal recreational cannabis market opened many aspects of the supply chain to the private sector to fill the need for the responsible production and sale of cannabis products in Canada. It's estimated, ladies and gentlemen, that in 2022, sales of cannabis is expected, or it did reach or exceed $4.5 billion. Early market projections for this year will continue to increase. We really need to change the dial. We really need to instigate change in Surrey, British Columbia. There's so many surrounding BC municipalities that have allowed the cannabis retail sector to exist. And we know that the City of Surrey is looking at it. And we released a policy paper earlier this month. It's on our website at businessinsurrey.com. We'll be sending all of the attendees a copy of it after the event with a recording link to this morning's session. But our ask to the City of Surrey is to create a structured, strategic, and responsible policy to allow cannabis operators to exist in Surrey. Number two is to create an efficient cannabis regulatory framework, including looking at and implementing zoning bylaws, business license bylaws, enforcements, municipal ticket information bylaws, creating a smooth process for the establishment of a cannabis retail store during the application intake period, review process, and evaluation criteria so that our businesses are not waiting years and years for approval for their business permit. Our ask to the provincial and federal government is to ensure that there is a focus on resources and attention for policing and prosecution of illicit and illegal cannabis production and sales. Number 2, to introduce province-wide retail operator licensing. Number 3, to increase the cap on the number of allowed retail locations per operator to help meet consumer demand. We need to also ensure we have partnerships with our healthcare industry, with our senior stakeholders as well, as it relates to the cannabis retail sector. We need to work with banks, with financial institutions, to ensure that legal cannabis operators can access financial support. We also need to invest in labor market, workforce development, training for this sector in this new and emerging industry that we are talking about this morning. We want to hear this morning from some trailblazers in the industry to help you instigate and contribute to the dialogue that is here today. So as our panelists are speaking in turn, I want you to think about what you can contribute to the dialogue. Come up to the microphone, and we just want brief remarks, brief comments. Anything that is in detail, you can email us at the Surrey Board of Trade, info@businessinsurrey.com, and that will help with our dialogue with the City of Surrey as they are composing and considering a structured framework for the cannabis industry to exist in Surrey. So let's begin. First of all, I'm going to have Jesse Dammy speak. And first, we're going to have some sponsors speak and then the panelists. Jesse and Inspired Cannabis, they have been amazing supporters and contributors to our policy work at the Surrey Board of Trade. So please come forward for a few words. Please help me welcome Randy Tingskou from A Little Bud and Jesse Dammy from Inspired Cannabis to speak.
Thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Randy. I'm the owner and operator of A Little Bud Cannabis. We're excited to be here and have the start of the dialogue for the City of Surrey as far as cannabis retail goes, and just to share the stage here with so many other cannabis leaders. I know that it's been a difficult ocean to sort of navigate. There's not a lot of direction and not a lot of guidance, but we've all gotten to the place we have through hard work and diligence. I'm grateful to be able to share this opportunity with all of you and to get the conversation going. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jesse Dammy. I'm the president and co-founder of Inspired Cannabis. We're a family-based business, originated from a backyard 3 years ago, and has been able to grow to have 16 stores across three provinces. And so we've grown this, we've bootstrapped this. We are a small business. I think this dialogue is very important to have. I thank Anita and the Surrey Board of Trade for having this and setting this up. And I look forward to hearing the panelists speak. I think we do need cannabis in Surrey, but how we do it is very important. And we've learned from just in our stores in Ontario that you don't need a cluster, you don't need a lot of them, but you need them in key areas. So geographically segmented, core commercial areas. It's important where they go. And for the residents, I think one of the things that us as industry leaders need to kind of help is the education. So education in a lot of ways. Education in terms of the stigma. Obviously, I'm South Asian, and so when I left and started Inspired, even my own family, they shunned me for a bit because there's a lot of stigma with this whole industry. And I think through education with even whether it's the city or whether it's with key stakeholders, you get knowledge, and with knowledge, you make informed decisions. And so I look forward to hearing the panelists, and thank you very much.
Thank you again for your sponsorship support. We really appreciate it. So now on stage, we have Vikram Sachdeva from Seed and Stone. A round of applause. Andrew Gordon from THC Canada. Joyce Hayne from EMC Publications. Harp Hoonjan from Platinum Projects. And Randy Tingskou from A Little Bud. They'll all speak in turn, and you can use the microphone at your seat there, and then we'll proceed with the dialogue. Go ahead, Vikram.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today? I'm glad to be here. Surrey Board of Trade has given us a platform to express our journeys, and I look forward to listening to the other panelists as well. I have a bit of a presentation that I would like to do, but before I do that, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Semi-Amo, Katsi, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Kokot, and Tuasin First Nations, as well as recognize our partners as the Songhees First Nations that are a major stakeholder at Seed and Stone. We could actually go back to the... Am I controlling it from here? Just... Is this going forward or backward? I just want to get to the first slide. Can you maneuver it from there? Or? This is a bit of an icebreaker. We're going straight to the community safety and benefits, which I think everybody is looking at. So. Okay, so just go back. Okay, Seed and Stone. So we were born in 2018. I started the company. I'm the founder and CEO. Like Jesse mentioned, we are also a startup. We have been a startup since we started, and we continue to being a startup. We have a diverse management team with over 60 years in the retail business. I personally have been with Subway and with the BC Liquor Distribution Branch. And I bring a team with me that is very well educated in the cannabis space as well as the retail space. We have also showcased our strong commitment to the community by operating, hiring locally and training locally, and our partnership with the First Nations. Why is the partnership with the First Nations so important to us? Songhees First Nations had 11 people pitch to them, and they took an approach to go with a startup like mine that was passionate about what they wanted to do in the industry and create an education platform for not only the community, but as well as the First Nations to take part. Just the way the liquor distribution branch has done over the years, creating wealth for the government. I think it's a great opportunity for the First Nations to create generational wealth through the cannabis industry, and that was our approach when we started the dialogue with the Songhees First Nations, and Chief Ron Sam has been a great supporter of it. One of the most important things is this partnership is not a corporate partnership. It's built on honesty, trust, and forgiveness, similar things that we ask from our communities that we enter. Trust and honesty is very important for us, and forgiveness, just in case we make a mistake, is very important. We are, like I mentioned, we are creating a pathway for all First Nations to participate in the legal cannabis industry through our water leaf management that is now providing services to other First Nations that are looking to get into retail and don't have the know-how or don't understand the nuances of running a cannabis business in today's day and age. A little bit about our own journey. It has been a roller coaster. I say that it's an exciting journey. Who gets to be on a roller coaster every day? We do. So it is a fun journey. We started in 2018. My first store actually opened in Chilliwack in an industrial area right before COVID started, so March 2020. It was a challenge. I remember standing outside with a sign in my hand asking people to come in and say, it was essential services, which was great, and we ended up getting a good client base based on the fact that we were looking at health and wellness for people that were away from work or in their houses and needed something either recreationally or for health purposes. Important things to note here is the partnership with the Songhees Nation came in May 2020. After that, we pivoted and we opened 3 stores with them in Victoria. A key important note on that is that the BC Liquor Distribution Branch and the BC Cannabis Branch actually transferred their own license that was already set to go in the Bay Center Mall to two seed and stone to operate. So they believed in us to operate a store, and in turn help the whole industry there, because let's be honest, the government has that 15% advantage, and their price point would not be ideal for anybody in the industry in that area. So I think it was a great move by the BCLDB to do that. But we are again cannibalizing the store. We have a second store that's about 200 meters away, and we had to open that as well. So there are challenges that come with these kind of policies and policy changes. When there's something set in and then they go ahead and they change it, it becomes very difficult for us operators to understand which nuances do we look at. Other important factors are we are one of the brands that looks at educating the communities that we go into. We were the first ones to start the conversation with Delta and invite the mayor to our store and start the policy with them. We were the first ones to get licensed there, so that was a great win for us in the sense on educating the council and mayor on how cannabis retail can help with the economy and creating jobs as well. We did a similar thing now with the municipality of Hope, BC. We are the first ones to get licensed and open in Hope, and we continue to push that narrative forward. Moving on to the next slide. Cannabis retail benefits local community and economy. Addresses community health and wellness. This is very important. Even though we are retailers, we don't have the opportunity to give health and wellness advice, but we do see a constant customer base of around 44 to 45% coming into our stores looking for health and wellness, for sleep, for rest, relaxation, and for wellness, creating balances in their body. General local economic benefits, like we employ a number of bud tenders. We pay them a great wage. We have dental, medical, and we amounts to about $350,000 annually in wages. An additional footfall to the neighboring business. Let's not get this wrong. We have about 150 to 200 customers walking in. They're educated customers that are spending their money not just only in our stores, but in the surrounding stores. Maybe they want to get some groceries. Maybe they want to get... So we are bringing that value to the stores that are next to us. Contribution to the sustainable community. Employees live and work locally. So if a city has a plan for the future for the youth, then it's very important for us to empower them, to train them, to understand that this is a new opportunity for them to take part in an industry that is just growing. And the wages that we are offering and the revenues that we're bringing in through the education aspect of it is very important for the communities to understand. Retail ambience. Now, let's be honest, there is a level of stigma surrounding cannabis, and when I got into it, I wanted to create a store. Everybody told me, hey, you're selling cannabis, it's going to sell anyways. Why are you spending $300,000 to $500,000 building a store that looks like a jewelry store? I'm like, it's not a jewelry store, it's like a library that is educating people. So this is more about education, creating an environment in our stores that is conducive of people coming in, which is a new user or an old user, and giving them that comfort. My grandma can come into my store and she'd be blown away by the service and the education. That aspect is missing in the illicit or the gray market. You are in a parking lot or talking to, and it's dangerous for the communities not to have an educated ambiance and an ambiance that creates comfort. If people walk in, they don't feel like they're at a head shop or there's no bongs all over the place. It looks like an educative, impressive place to be. So this is somewhat of our retail ambience from our stores. We are a local store. We focus on BC and local, so everything is based on that. What does it take to get a license? Now, there's stringent, like, I don't want to go through the whole process, but if anybody wants to talk about this process, I can discuss it after. The only thing is that this process can take up to 12 to 18 months, and we have to continue to rent a space, convince the landlord, go through multiple challenges with the municipality as added security measures, having to educate everybody, to get community support. Other businesses don't have to do all that. Why? When it was legalized, you got the support of Canada. Why do we have to constantly go out there and prove ourselves? Why? The stigma is there, but it's about time. If we are a legalized industry, give us an opportunity to strive, because if we don't, others are not going to follow in this industry. If we are going to be leaders in the world, we have to show the leaders in the industry being successful. If we are not successful, nobody else is coming into this industry. So, moving on to the next one, the fun part. Community safety and benefits, which is very near and dear to us. I think to every retailer here, they would attest to that we really care about our community and about serving the communities. And there are people that sit at home and use cannabis for multiple reasons. So cannabis and safety, we adhere to all regulations, stellar operation records for most of the retailers here. I don't think we have. On the bottom, there is all the studies that I'm going to refer to have been documented, and there's a link to it. So I'm not saying all this just to say. There is backing behind it. We incorporate CPTED programs, something like an environmental design, to make sure that the stores are accessible and easy to and are safe. But the challenge is, again, when you have to make your windows opaque and people can't see. That's a security issue for my bud tenders. I'm worried that when a cop that is driving by my store can't see inside what's happening, what is the problem? I don't understand. We're not showing the bud, it's packets. I'm sure you guys have seen what cannabis comes in. It's child-proof. You can't tell it's a regular box. I don't see the difference. I walk down the street and there's a bong shop with showing all bongs and everything, whereas on the other hand, we have to keep what are we hiding? We are adding to the stigma by doing things like that, by not educating people that look inside. Yes, we are not going to allow minors to come in. We are going to make sure that the process is done properly. Studies show that legal cannabis retail lowers crime rates. This is very important to understand. If we are going to allow for peddlers and for drug dealers to come into our schooling systems and to our colleges, into back streets, it's going to be an issue. There's going to be gang war. And let's be honest, it's a real thing in Surrey. My son goes to a school in Solomon Heights, which is heart of Surrey. I live in Surrey. And I've had that conversation with him because I'm educated about cannabis, and now he's educated about it, and I've warned him about, and he's told me that the people have approached him. He's 14 years old, he's a teenager. It's a very important issue that we all need to wake up and understand. That was the mandate of the government, is to keep it away from our children. Are we doing that by not allowing cannabis in Surrey? I don't know, right? So we need to understand that this is an important aspect to it. Study finds reduction in youth cannabis offenses. Now our kids are not getting access to it, so now they are not going and they want to buy Jordans, and they want to, we'll get you some Jordans, or I can get you a new iPhone or something, and they're going to be, they won't have to do that. Now there is education behind it. White Rock and Port Coquitlam RCMPs have witnessed no issues beyond typical businesses. Same goes for other municipalities such as Delta and Abbotsford. We have been operating 5 stores for the past 3 years, and touch wood, we haven't seen a single incident in any of our stores. So it's a testament to how things are moving forward. Cannabis and community benefits. Prohibits sales to minors, I've already touched on that. Provides access to safe and Health Canada regulated products. Again, when we are getting it from the gray market, do we know what's in it? Is there fentanyl in it? How many deaths it's going to cause? So here we have an opportunity to give a product that is Health Canada approved, and that's what the government did this for. Generate tax revenue and employment. Like we talked about, $4.5 billion. Come on, which other industry is bringing that kind of revenue in the 3rd year of their existence? So let's wake up to that and understand that the economic benefits are definitely there. If anybody thinks that these stores don't make money, if it's the right location and we have the right nuances on where the location goes, they will make money. Diverts revenue from the illicit market. I want to just say that Surrey needs to look at this point very closely, because there is definitely a thriving mail order marijuana illicit market that is operating in Surrey at this point. If we do not allow for cannabis retail, that will continue thriving, and it's just going to take longer for us retailers to come in and combat that for the cities. Incorporate community cleanup initiatives. We have done that in the past, and address wellness requirements of the community. 44%, like I mentioned, of the users consumed it for physical pain relief as per the 2022 BC government survey, which is very important to understand. I'm just going to move on to quickly show you guys how the municipalities, how many numbers of stores. As of yesterday, we have 503 stores already licensed in BC, and there is none in Surrey. But these communities like White Rock, Hope, Langley, Aldergrove, Delta have opened up their doors and are looking at building that network of stores. Why do municipalities' cannabis retail policies aim to optimum number of retail stores? It's very important to understand that we can't go with the maximum number of stores or open it up. If you want a business to be successful, with my subway background, we always take a 3-kilometer radius, 10,000 people population, and we put a store there. What are the nuances that these cities are looking at, municipalities are looking at? Look at the nuances of making us a successful business. If you're going to just open it up, we're going to eat each other out, and eventually the market will stabilize, but it's going to cause a massive downflow of people that are not getting any banking. So they're putting all their life savings into it, and mom and pop stores I am a mom and pop store, and it affects us in many ways. So very important to understand the focus should be on the optimum number of stores. Most cities have taken this policy route to evaluate to evaluation criteria, like they will say, okay, there's this buffer zone, or there is you're not allowed to do maximum 3 stores, and then there's they can have other policies that will limit that number of stores. Again, we have been trusted by certain municipalities like Chilliwack, 3 in Victoria, Hope, White Rock, Coquitlam, and we continue to press the issue forward. I'm going to move forward. This is an important one. This is the last slide. I won't take too much of your time. Key challenges faced by cannabis retailers. I wanted to keep this till the end because don't want to start. We are entrepreneurs. We are always going to be positive about this industry. I want to do the best I can to make this industry successful. But number one thing is competition from the illicit market, mail order deliveries. I already talked about that. Very important for us to combat that. Lack of access to banking services. Cannabis retailers like myself have to beg, borrow, hopefully not steal, but get the money from somewhere to fund these operations. And at that point, we don't even know if we're going to get the license. We have to take all the risk up front, which is very important. Stigma, there is a stigma still very prevalent there. Every day we have to deal with that and we have to educate. So education is a big aspect of my brand that we are pushing for, to educate people, and that's why I'm here to educate you all about what it takes to be in this industry. High startup costs, cost of licensing, cost of security, inventory, compliance, leasing, all those costs are being taken up before we actually get the license. Competition from the province. Look, they give me the license. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. It is an industry. They were doing it for the first time. We were doing it for the first time. But if there's a conflict of they get a 15% margin on products. That margin helps them run their retail businesses. We don't get that 15%. They have a price point which we can't match. So how is this not a conflict of interest? It's basic business rules. If you are going to be giving us other distributor, then do that. Let us do the retail. And then the leasing difficulties that I've already gone over is very important. I would like to thank you for your time. If there's any questions, I'm available. And over to Andrew.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Vikram. That was wonderful. A lot of great quantitative analysis there. I think it's really important that you get a lay of the land when it comes to the realities of cannabis retail. Again, my name is Andrew Gordon, and I'm the Chief Growth Officer for THC Canada. We're a private independent retailer based in Vancouver, British Columbia, on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of the Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam nations. Excited about the prospect of retail here in Surrey. I'm stepping in for Spencer Sangera, our founder and president today. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but he's definitely here in spirit and a celebrated figure within the community here in Surrey. Again, THC is a brand that I was really drawn to. I've been in the industry since 2014 as a vocal advocate. I've worked many years ago with Anita and the Board of Trade here advocating for reform and regulatory development here in Surrey because we saw it as an important landscape for the development of cannabis retail and cannabis industry in general. We're a brand that I'm proud to say has been featured in Forbes, We've just recently been awarded back-to-back Independent Retail Brand of the Year. And we're an employer that believes in pursuing the living wage certification, strong employee benefits, and strong training programs that really are vested around education and community involvement. Looking at my background in the industry, I also serve as Vice President and founder of the BC Craft Farmers Co-op, which is an organization of over 200 members, processors, producers, retailers from across British Columbia. And I also serve as director of the Retail Cannabis Council of BC, which advocates regularly with all levels of government to really reform the regulatory landscape and really create a better environment for retailers and operators within the cannabis space. So great quantitative analysis. I'd maybe like to bring in a little qualitative analysis and really kind of talk about, changing hearts and minds in the community. I think that's probably the most important mission we have upon us right now. There's a tremendous amount of stigma. I'm a dad. I have an 8-year-old boy. I've been married 15 years. And I use cannabis every day to improve my quality of life. I'm a patient, first and foremost, not just an operator. And I'm sure there's people on this panel that feel the same way. I definitely know Vikram does. So, for me, it's been transformative. I averted a very debilitating pharmaceutical drug regimen in college and moved into a benign and natural and beneficial medicine that improved my quality of life to a state where, as someone who comes from a single-parent family and endured childhood trauma, really has transformed my life into something I'm incredibly proud of. I have a beautiful wife, beautiful family, a beautiful career, and this is the type of thing that cannabis can do in a community for individuals. And I see people all across this community, particularly young adults, looking for a chance to build something that's their own, something they're excited about. Maybe they got a little bit of a rebel in them, and that's something that drew me to cannabis. I mean, it was a social justice cause for me, first and foremost. I think, we spoke to the stigma of this, and it's real and palpable, and we see it every day in the community, and we have a lot of work to do to educate, inform, and empower people to make a change of their hearts and minds when it comes to cannabis. And, it's something that we have to earn every day in the community. We see that in the shops that we run and in the conversations we have. And so I think, one of the reasons I was drawn to THC was the power of brand and the ability for that to influence the conversation in community. We're based in South Van in the Punjabi market, a wonderful, wonderful center, but again, a very traditional values and hard to build a conversation when you're out there at the outset. But through the experience of brand, through the involvement of community, Spencer and the THC crew have been able to really develop strong community ties. He's affectionately referred to as the mayor of South Vancouver. And that's because he's invested a tremendous amount of time in community, building really positive, purposeful action campaigns that empower consumers to feel good about coming into a regulated retail environment. And tremendous amount of our clientele comes from Surrey because of the lack of available retail out here. And so to see those individuals come in, take that journey, it's a long trip from Surrey out to South Van, and to see that experience and the excitement and the capacity of that ability to educate and empower and inform and tell them that, hey, the landscape is beginning to change. We're starting to see more and more data come in to empower decision makers to make powerful change in the community. And so I see a figure like Spencer who receives messages on a daily basis. I mean, we have over 50,000 Instagram followers across our networks, and these messages come in every day from young Indo-Canadians that really see the value in the entrepreneurial endeavor, in the social justice campaign, and in the ability to build something that they're proud and excited to be a part of. And I see that opportunity here in Surrey. And I'm incredibly encouraged that the dialogue that is evolving here now that we have a change of leadership in the city and the Surrey Board of Trade continuing to step up and really add value to the conversation for operators. You look at gang violence and you look at crime in the city and the intersect between young adults and that lifestyle and looking for alternative options that are going to really be appealing. And I think cannabis retail, cannabis industry in general, has a tremendous capacity to transform that landscape. It's one thing to talk about the illicit market. I think it's another to really have informed conversations around transitioning that illicit market. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people out there that would love an opportunity to come into a regulated environment. And Spencer sees that feedback every day and has been a part of informing and inspiring that change in hearts and minds with young adults, and particularly in communities like Surrey. So I'm really excited about that inspirational message that can come through, and I think if Surrey picks the right operators and the right brands, I think that message will resonate in a very authentic way, and that's one of the reasons we're throwing our hat in here in Surrey, and we definitely think there is a tremendous opportunity to really transform that conversation and again, get people out of that life into vocational endeavor that'll add value to the community context in terms of jobs and tax revenue and really destigmatizing the conversation and opportunity around cannabis. I think the other thing that's important to note, a lot of communities like Surrey have received some feedback from industry stakeholders around, what took you so long? And it's an honest question for sure. You look at legalization and the impact cannabis has had nationally. I mean, we've generated over $100 billion in revenue, or almost approaching $100 billion in GDP impact, over 100,000 jobs, 15 billion in tax revenue. I mean, we are not inconsequential on the landscape of economic development in Canada, and particularly in this province, where we're a celebrated international figure when it comes to cannabis. BC Bud's name reigns across the lands wherever you go, from India to Amsterdam to England. So it's a tremendous opportunity we have, and I think Surrey's not too late to the game here at all. I think that old adage of absorbing what's useful, discarding what's useless, and adding what is essentially your own comes to light here. And I'm excited to see that now that we have the data in hand, now that we have proof in the pudding, what the expression of cannabis retail and cannabis industry in Surrey will look like. We're getting into a regulatory reform landscape where we've seen tremendous opportunity for processing, for farm gate, for direct sales, for consumption sites that provide safe access of analytically tested product that's going to improve public health and safety, drive new jobs and tax revenue, and really, again, destigmatize conversation and give people leaders in the community to look to. And I think that's really important as well. And I think the last point here is really around creating the best model in the country. I think we all kind of acknowledge that there is already a thriving cannabis industry in Surrey. And I think the chance to transition that, turn that into an economic engine that drives positive impact in the community long term is right here in front of us. And I'm extremely excited to be a part of that mission along with these other fine operators here and others in the room. Looking at the chance to see the data, I mean, Normal did a longitudinal study from 2014 to 2019. It's a national organization for the reform of marijuana laws. And, it looked at crime rates, it looked at property values, it looked at youth access, and we all saw very encouraging data come back. We saw property values increase where regulated retail came into communities. We saw youth access decrease, youth interest decrease in cannabis once it became regulated. And, you had operators that are asking for 2 pieces of ID, educating consumers and parents in the local community around to make positive choices. So very excited about that. I think, with retail comes a lot of other zoning opportunities, and I do hope the City of Surrey will look to that. And I'm very, very excited to be a part of the conversation moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Hello. I come to this with a totally different perspective. I publish Cannabis Retailer magazine, so my goal is to educate the retailers and provide some information on marketing, operations, human resources, so that they can run a more profitable store. I started the magazine in 2018, so we started at the beginning of legalization. I've been publishing a magazine for liquor retailers for 25 years, so that's sort of how I got into the cannabis as well as another controlled substance. So 4.5 years ago has been our journey when we started on legalizing cannabis for recreational purposes. From that time, we've now grown to over 3,500 stores across Canada. And as was mentioned, $4.5 billion in 1 year, and that's growing every year. So that's up 14.1% from 2021. We are an industry to be reckoned with. We are filled with really passionate operators, as you've already heard from 2 of them and a few of our sponsors, that have put their heart and soul into this industry to really make it something that everybody, every Canadian can be proud of. And I think everybody needs to realize that, we are a strong industry. December sales across Canada, 425.9 million in 1 month from those 3,500 stores. Breaking down BC, we had 60 million from the 474 stores as of the end of January. That's grown now to over 500 stores in BC. Vancouver's doing 19.9 million, so almost 20 million in cannabis sales in the month of December in the city of Vancouver. Alberta has 753 stores, doing 69.5 million. Edmonton doing 23.3 million, Calgary 19.4 million. That is only in the month of January. So those cities are doing some phenomenal things. Even Winnipeg is doing 10.7 million, and here in Surrey we have none. So we've got a long way to go. There's a lot of opportunity of what can be had as far as the revenue and other things, and understanding that cannabis is a great economic driver. As you've heard, we drive employment, we drive revenue directly to the government. So there's a lot of opportunities. Even from having the crop producers, you can now have a crop producer in Surrey who could direct deliver to the stores and have that direct delivery component and really create a thriving local cannabis economy in Surrey. We have made a lot of pros in the past few years. We are down to, it's about 50% now of the illegal cannabis consumption, so we still have a long way to go. But we are making big inroads in that illicit market and getting that down. We do have consumption by youth. There's been some very strong reports that cannabis consumption by youth has decreased, which is great. But there's still a lot of barriers that government is imposing, making it difficult. What Vikram had mentioned, there's a lot of barriers to entry for the industry, but there's also a lot of barriers in what people are allowed to do with a business. The packaging, I don't know if you've all seen the packaging. It is very discreet, is one word, very unappealing for any brand trying to make it. And if you compare that to what something looks like from the illicit market, they've got bright packaging, they've got beautiful, they can have more than one gummy per package. It's just incredible, the differences, and we need to be able to level that playing field as well. The regulatory framework is very cumbersome, and Harp, I think, is going to be going into some of the government issues. We do have the same wholesale and distributor, and also getting into retailer. The LDB is creating a bit of a monopoly from that point of view, as opposed to other provinces like Saskatchewan, which the industry looks towards as being someone that can actually run everything independently. It doesn't have to be all government run in order to be success, and Saskatchewan is a very successful market that is letting the individual businesses operate everything, and very successfully. You can compare to liquor. The liquor industry is one that has successfully been allowed to have independents running and doing a very good job with that as well. One other thing I would suggest for the City of Surrey looking at it is not to overtax. There's something that's been called the green tax. And everybody thinking when cannabis started that they could make a fortune by taxing everybody to the limits. And I think Vancouver started with, $50,000 for a license for a cannabis store. Well, why would a municipality have a different structure and cost for a license for a cannabis store as opposed to a liquor store, as opposed to a clothing store? It is a retail operation, and these operators are not making fortunes. Perhaps they did in the illicit market, but they're certainly not in the legal market. Their hands are tied, they're scraping by, they are doing everything they can to be successful, but they are really, it's the independents that are making this industry a success and that are helping to educate the public, that are providing a great service to our communities and hopefully to the community of Surrey. I live in Cloverdale, and I can go to the store in Langley. I can go to a Little Bud in White Rock, but we don't have a store here in Surrey, which is absurd, guys. So hopefully council will make those changes and try and make some inroads in that way. As far as government policy goes, I think the market should be allowed to figure out how many stores it will have. And just, if there's a Starbucks on every corner in Vancouver, there was, one right across the street from each other. One eventually closed. They realized it didn't work, so the market will correct itself, and we are seeing that in markets like Toronto and Waterloo, Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary, where there was an oversaturation of stores, and those are now getting to be more brought down to a level which makes more sense rather than having one on every block. But I would also suggest let independents run the business. Don't think that government stores and the BC cannabis stores should be the ones to come into the city. Let independents do it. There's many markets, and Harp can tell you about one. Courtney is where one of his stores is, where the BC cannabis store came in and cannibalized sales of independents, and I think that's wrong. Thank you all for your time. We do have a great resource if anybody is interested in learning more about cannabis retail. Please visit our site, cannabisretailer.ca. Has a lot of articles in regards to setting up a cannabis store, operations, retail, anything you would want to know about cannabis retail. We do have a great resource of articles on our site. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Let's see if this thing works. It does. Okay, you've heard some awesome stories about the industry. So I was asked to give a little bit of a presentation on my experience with local government. I come from a development construction industry, been in it for about 30 years. I've been in the cannabis side of the business for 2, but before that I was in the CBD business. One of the local companies in the heyday of cannabis decided that they were going to move to a grow in Mexico, and so they hired me on as a project manager to look after from growth right through to packaging and also selling in Mexico. That was in the heyday. I think everybody's spoken about where the industry has come from. If you recall the stock market, Canaccord Capital raising funds, they were raising at phenomenal numbers. And everybody thought that, this is a moneymaker, man, this is such a great industry. But what we've learned over the last 4 years is that the industry peaked at a certain time. Everybody thought it was going to do some great numbers, but the metrics show that, we've actually come down to where it really should be. And these days, people are still thinking that there's a lot of money in this business. There is, but you have to be very, very careful how you plan the business, what the regulations are in each community, local governments, and so forth. So I've been dealing with a lot of my clients are in the industry, and I've been able to deal with the local government approval process side, the BCLDB process side, and so forth. So I just wanted to share some metrics that everybody should be aware of in other cities. The numbers speak volumes. So for me, I come from an engineering background, so you'll probably see some numbers on the slides. We really feel that Surrey Surrey should have been in this game years ago, but it's never too late. I think one of the panelists had said that. So the fact that it's there, the council and staff really have an opportunity to establish some industry-wide guardrails for the industry, and to create a level playing field in Surrey. Also, my presentation will give you a bit of a sense what the city can learn from experiences of the industry, and maybe they can learn from some of the metrics that are applied, some of the guardrails that other local governments have applied. Some work, some not so good, but you know, this isn't 2018, this is 2023. The industry has come a long ways in the last 4.5, 5 years. So for Surrey, it'd be an easy move right now. You don't need to spend a lot of time to figure out what the population wants. That ship has sailed. And if Surrey can't figure it out at 4.5, 5 years later, I'd question that. So the first slide I'm going to talk about, is some of what most of my clients go through, what I've been through. You've heard today that there's challenges in where you're located. So it's real estate. It is location, location, location. So the attributes for location that we find, and that we're always finding that are barriers to entry, are the commercial real estate community. First of all, we have to talk to every commercial realtor and say, hey man, do you have a property that, you know, we could put a cannabis store in? A lot of times, before they even take it to the landlord, they will typically say, no, we're not interested. Because they realize that what we do is, when we want to go into a center, that we're never guaranteed that we're going to get approval. So the commercial realtor, you know, says, no, you know what, we don't want to deal with a cannabis operator, because you may never get the lease. You're going to tie us up for 6 months or a year. So that's a challenge. So these are some of the barriers, and I think Joyce talked to some of the barriers, Vikram did as well. Then there's landlord site approval. You know, landlord says, yeah, sure, you want to be on my site, this is what it's going to cost you. The offer negotiation process and competing with other bids as well. I mean, this industry is tight, and you know, we end up competing against each other. So the cost per square foot of leasing gets high. And then the other biggest cost is that if we are not successful in a certain location, then we have the termination and penalties. So all in all, I mean, it sounds easy, you know, go tie up a store and make an application, but it is quite the process. That's just one side of it. On the other side is the significant uses matrix that I use for my stores and also for some of my clients. And it's different for all local governments. Significant uses that most of the local governments consider are rec centers, community centers, schools, elementary, secondary, playgrounds, parks, other cannabis retail stores. So if you're tying something up somewhere and you're going to make an application, you have no idea if somebody's 2 blocks away has tied up another store. It's a very difficult industry, and I think government can do some things to make it a bit of a level playing field, and make it easier. Some of the things that we always look at are retail centric. That's fairly consistent throughout the Lower Mainland, Greater Vancouver. You want to be in a retail centric zone, because what we do is when we open up a store, I mean, you know, I've got a store in Ladner, another one in Tsawwassen. Both of them are located in where there's a local food anchor, Save On Foods. They have a certain pedestrian count that comes into Save On Foods on a regular basis. So that's what sustains our businesses in those types of centers. And you know, they're larger shopping centers, they're core commercial areas. You want to be around a larger chain and food anchors, possibly liquor stores and so forth, where the community comes in. And one thing that we've always kind of looked at, and a lot of the governments don't like, is to be located in hybrid industrial commercial spaces. And I know, you know, Vikram, he was a trailblazer in Delta, and the city had said to him, hey, you know what, maybe you want to be located in an industrial location. He ended up tying up an industrial location. But behind him, he was a trailblazer. We ended up making certain applications, but we looked at the retail-centric side of it. And I can tell you that the putting stores in industrial areas, first of all, they shouldn't be there, because these are retail stores. This isn't an industry in that format. So we always say, look in retail-centric locations. So that's sort of the locations and the attributes of locations that are challenged right away. Then the next process is preparing your application. Anybody thought this was just a regular apply for a business license? It's not. The application completeness. I mean, we went through the process of going through Coquitlam and in Delta and so forth. So the local government, BCL, CRB, those are applications that need to be filled out, and there has to be complete. And for local government, you're looking at application with fees paid, development permit process, public hearings, and et cetera. You have to show the city the justification for proposal and the rationale of why the store should be located there. You're completing design drawings, which has site context maps, interior layout, security features, and everything else that goes along with it. This is before it even gets to the next level. I mean, staff hasn't even reviewed this, and you've done all of this expense and work that goes ahead of getting into the application process. We use this as a guide for local government provincial approval process. It's a concurrent process. Local government being on one side, provincial approval being the concurrent on the other side. So I mean, this one here, I won't belabor you with it, but if somebody wants to have a chat with me about it, we can, definitely have a look at it. So you're running two processes concurrently. And if you don't make one, the other fails. If you don't make the other, the first one fails. So it's quite a process. It's a lengthy process. It's a cumbersome process, but that's the process we have to deal with. Can it be streamlined? Absolutely. Is there an opportunity to do it? Yes, there is. Always is an opportunity to prove. Talked about numbers. I think everybody's thrown up some charts. I wanted to throw this one up, which is a local government significant use matrix. So what I've done is we've put in all the communities from Abbotsford right down to White Rock in alphabetical order, and all of these communities have significant uses. So what they do is they prescribe that from schools or from playgrounds, community rec centers, and other cannabis retail stores, what the distances you should be away from them. So if you look at this, you've got some high ones in Vancouver. They basically just set up 300 meters all across the board. If you look at Port Coquitlam, 250 meters all across the board. And then you've got communities that like Port Moody, they set up 75 meters as the acceptable distance. And then if you look at down in White Rock, they've got 30 meters. I mean, it's a small community. I think it was, that's really what they needed to do. You'll look at Burnaby, it's 200 meters. So everybody is a little bit different, but these are communities that have been now in business for some time. Surrey now has an opportunity to kind of look at all of this and say, what's important for this community and so forth. And you can learn from it. Next slide I wanted to show was the number of cannabis retail stores across the Lower Mainland. So what we did was we did a bit of a matrix for you, and again, it's a numbers game. It's all about numbers, they don't lie. Vancouver has 74 stores to White Rock having 2. Delta has 8. And if you look at the population, so what we did was we took the Vancouver population of 662,000 people, 74 stores. That gives sort of a per capita, if you want to call it, or population per store is 9,000. So one store for 9,000 people. If you go down to the bottom, the lowest one there is, just give me one sec, is, the other spectrum is Burnaby. So if you look at Burnaby, It has 4 stores, 249,000 people. So their population per store is 62,300. So when you look at this, if you go down to the bottom there, what we said was, look, Surrey based on 62,300 in Burnaby, that means Surrey could easily take 9 stores, okay, if you went to that ratio. If you went to Vancouver's, you could do 63 stores. So we did a quick average. Average works out to 26 stores. Numbers don't lie. That's the numbers across the Lower Mainland. So we've heard grumblings that City wants to do quite a bit of a lesser number, like 3 stores or something like that. I'm not sure what industry they went to and looked at and compared to. If you look at Edmonton, 200 stores for 1.1 million people. Calgary, 200 stores for 1.2. Toronto, 220 per 6.3. So I've always heard, and I've been hearing this for years, Surrey compares itself to Vancouver in a lot of ways. And in fact, at some point, it's going to become a larger city than Vancouver. And I've been involved in Surrey since 1987, so this is my stomping ground. I love this community. We've done a lot of business in this community, and I think there's an opportunity for Surrey to do something good here as well. And not go back into the dark ages by saying we want to be involved in business. Like, the government needs to step out of the way, allow the industry to do what industries are good at. There's studies. I looked at studies. The Science Direct, if you want to go on the web, Science Direct does a drug and alcohol dependence study. They basically say there's a strong positive relationship between increased licensed stores and increased legal retail sales. This reduces the illicit drugs. This reduces crime. It's a known fact. This is 4 or 5 years now into this business. It is known, and I'm always surprised that people don't pay attention to what the whole premise was for having retail cannabis or legalizing cannabis was to eliminate the illicit market. And if really you want to eliminate the illicit market in Surrey, we hear it all the time, gang violence. What do you hear? So if you want to eliminate it, then we have an opportunity to do it. Do it in a measured way. Completely agree with that. But it can be done. Next slide I'm going to show you was something really quick about safety. SBOT had asked that we say something about safety as well. This was a letter that Chief Constable Dubert of the DPD had sent to City Council Delta on one of my applications in Tsawwassen. They had asked them to interview other police forces, other communities, and come back to them with what they found, their findings of crime, their findings of public safety, drinking, driving, and so forth. I won't belabor you with all the points there, but Inspector Leeson remarked that of the feedback received from the various police departments, there were no public safety concerns correlating with property crimes and impaired driving, right? And these are independent. This is the police department doing it for their council, giving them, going out there and seeing what's going on in the industry. Another one that I should have put it up there, but Coquitlam Council asked staff, and this was during one of my applications as well, is to go to adjacent businesses in Port Moody and Port Coquitlam because they were actually ahead of Coquitlam itself. They already had some stores that were open. And they said, we wanted to get a sense from the neighbors of the existing retail stores to see what the disturbance is to them, or if there's anything that they can come up with that we need to make sure that the stores in Coquitlam, the retailers, that we can set some guardrails for them from that perspective. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Staff went out, spoke to everybody. They had no issues. In fact, most of the retail stores adjacent said, we love it. These guys create a lot of traffic, pedestrian. They improve our business. There's no issues. There's cameras. There's extra lighting. So, it's not something, the stigma has to go away because, that's not what's happening out there in reality. Oops, I got one last thing, and I thought I'd put this down. This is sort of, I should have asked Anita before I did this, but I put it in anyway. So, industry request. Surrey is a community within communities. There are approximately 568,000 people that reside here. My sense is council should consider allowing cannabis industry to open at least 2 stores as a measured approach in each of the 6 distinct communities: the city centre, Guildford, Fleetwood, Cloverdale, Newton, and South Surrey. These are the distinct Surrey, communities of Surrey. They're on every map of Surrey. This is how Surrey speaks. To have 2 stores in each of these communities, that's 12 stores in Surrey. This will provide safe, secure, and regulated access to cannabis in each of the communities. If I'm in South Surrey, White Rock area, I don't want to drive to Newton every day or second day or once a week to purchase my cannabis. I should be able to have a store in South Surrey. This will provide safe, secure, regulated access to cannabis in each of the communities. The goal is to make the City of Surrey a safer community by eliminating and removing illicit market. This will reduce the gang activity within Surrey. Surrey Council can eliminate and reduce illicit market sales to youth between the ages of 15 and 18 years of age, as the illicit market is the main source. 15 to 18-year-olds do not come into our stores. 15 to 18-year-olds get their cannabis from the illicit market, from the dial-a-dope guy. You want to get rid of that, then retail is what needs to happen here. You need to make it accessible. Once you make, it's a well-known fact that we've reduced, somebody will have a number here, but I think we've reduced illicit cannabis in Canada by 40%. Maybe it's more, but I think it was 40% is the last number I remember. There's still 60% illicit. And I can tell you, Surrey doesn't have a single store here. We can reduce the illicit market here. We're also wanting council to establish a time-sensitive policy framework that creates a level playing field for the cannabis industry. Time-sensitive being the predominant factor here. I don't think Surrey needs to go through years of public input process. We can learn from what the industry has learned over the last 4 or 5 years. All the data is in the Lower Mainland, every community. Surrey is one of the last communities. I think the other 2 communities are City of Langley. I think we have some folks here from City of Langley, and City of Richmond. So 3 communities that right now don't allow, and I think Surrey is headed in the right direction, but let's just make sure they do it right. I would also say city should create some guardrails for the industry. Really, that's what governance is about. Create some guardrails. There's a lot of examples the city can follow with all the other communities in the Lower Mainland that have gone through this process. So this shouldn't take that long. We've seen, in development, we've seen things that take years and years, official community plans, things like that, which impacts the industry. I don't think this is an element that should take years. This is something that should take months. Establishing guardrails would be super easy. So that's really where we want to go with this. Surrey is ready. I'm glad this council is looking at it. And I appreciate Anita and the SBOT having us here, having this talk. Hopefully everybody will learn a little bit from us, so it'll be good. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. As mentioned before, my name is Randy. I'm the owner of A Little Bud Cannabis. I'd like to start by thanking the Surrey Board of Trade for not only initializing this conversation, but helping continue the conversation along. It can be difficult at times, but it seems like it's getting the right momentum. So I currently own A Little Bud. We have 3 stores licensed, 2 more opening in 2023 here. We started A Little Bud because we wanted to help grow the industry and the negative stigmas, establish a safe and supportive workplace, as well as make positive changes in the communities that support us. I'm out to prove that cannabis retail is a win for every community we serve. We've been very successful so far, predominantly because our main focus has been on investing in our teams and the communities that we serve. By doing so, A Little Bud has become a trusted and relied upon business for the community, for our employees, and in turn, our customers. We have developed deep and meaningful relationships with nonprofits who serve our community's most vulnerable people, and to date, we've donated or pledged over $100,000 to local charities. We're able to accomplish this by focusing our energy on attracting, hiring, and retaining great people to help us achieve our goals. And we're lucky that in this blossoming industry, there's a high volume of talented applicants wanting to work in this industry, coming from all walks of business and life. My primary goal at A Little Bud has been retaining our excellent talent, and I do so by paying above average wages in all positions, offering full medical benefits to all of our employees and their families. We have far beyond the minimum requirement for paid vacation days, paid sick days, and a host of other incentives that have helped us maintain a 72% retention rate in retail, where turnover can be a very big issue. We use those savings from lack of high turnover, as well as by eliminating redundant positions to help support our community, which is how we've been able to make those charitable contributions. That's something that we're extremely proud of. We also have a very diverse staff that we employ in the cannabis industry, with about a 50% male to female, 50-50 male to female, and age ranges from 23 all the way up to 68 at A Little Bud. But that's enough about us. We seem to face two interesting issues in cannabis currently. One is a lack of cannabis retail stores in certain areas, such as Surrey, Richmond, Langley. And then we have an oversaturation in other areas, such as the Okanagan, the Kootenays, and even in Vancouver. Vancouver, for example, with 70 stores currently operating, if you were to look at the numbers store by store, about 65 of them would fall into the category of underperforming. Locations in oversaturated markets, they struggle to grow. They lack the ability to provide fresh and respectable products to consumers, and when they inevitably close their doors, it can be a very poor reflection of this industry as a whole. Successful businesses in this industry ensure that their employees can afford to live where they work. They can own or rent homes that they can be proud of. They can drive safe and reliable vehicles, and they can afford to give back to their community. And for that reason, I suggest a gradual approach to cannabis, including for the City of Surrey. We'd like to see a calculated number of stores based on area and census data with a per capita approach. Temporary use permit has been very successful in other municipalities to ensure that only the best operators are able to maintain and reap the rewards that come from this industry. A dedicated intake period with a clearly defined rubric of what is expected, and for the council to hold true to that, as we put a lot of effort into our planning and our positions within the community in order to provide the best services possible. And a requirement for community involvement or charitable contributions. I think that everybody up here, as far as the conversations I've had, we want to give from the goodness of our heart, and we want to give from a deep understanding that this opportunity for us is a blessing and something to be shared. Many of us would go above and beyond what it would be expected or what would be required of us, provided that we get an open approach where, yes, we want to have you involved in the community and in the charitable aspect, but these are some very creative people up here, and I think that we should be left to our own devices in how and who we support through the community, through those donations. I just want to see that graduated approach, reasonable access to safe cannabis for consumers while not compromising the quality, service, or reputation of this very new industry. It's still in its infancy. We still don't have charter banking. We still don't have prime lending opportunities. It's very new and it needs to be nurtured appropriately. And I think that with the right approach and a calculated approach, the City of Surrey can actually prosper as much as the industry itself has so far. I want to keep it really short and sweet. That's really all that I have. I recognize actually a lot of you from our White Rock store though, so for all of you who may come see us, we're open till 11 tonight. And I'd like to finish just by thanking everybody for your time. It's an honor to be up here presenting, speaking about this subject in such a public forum, and to share the stage with such accomplished peers. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Just amazing presentations, a wide-ranging diversity of thought as it relates to the cannabis industry in Surrey. So we're just going to spend, I know we're a little bit over time, but just 10 minutes of dialogue for you to input. But I just wanted to start with the RCMP. If you could come to the microphone and just offer your perspective and input from your perspective, please. You can just, yeah. that microphone right there.
So hello, I'm Inspector Ryan Element from the Surrey RCMP. I'm in charge of the proactive enforcement section, which includes overseeing the drug section, which is why I was selected to come here and discuss cannabis retail stores and Surrey's perspective on it. I'll give a very quick history on myself and how we've handled cannabis since this legalization in 2018. So I've been an officer for 22 years. Majority of that's been in drug enforcement. And so I was tasked in 2018 to look at the new Cannabis Act and the new Cannabis Control and Licensing Act provincially to see how we're going to adapt to that going forward. A lot of that had to do with cannabis retail stores. One of the major concerns for the city at the time was the Surrey's position was there was going to be no legal stores where other cities were planning on taking them on, hence this discussion. With that, we were very concerned that we would see, much like Vancouver, a massive spike in illegal stores. And to be quite honest, we didn't see any of that. So a lot of the problems that we thought were going to materialize in 2018 with legalization, increased drug trafficking. For us, one of the major concerns is illegal production methods. You know, when they use different oils and residents explode, we were really worried about that. We were worried about impaired driving as well. But since 2018 to present, we really have not seen any issues in regards to cannabis. We don't actively investigate a lot of cannabis offenses right now because this is Surrey. A lot of the biggest things for us is police and public safety. So you may have all noticed in the Lower Mainland, in Surrey in particular, but basically across the country, we're in an opioid crisis. These are the things that we focus on, and we don't necessarily focus on illicit cannabis trafficking. We know that it's there, but when I come into work on a Monday and I look at the stats and I'm the one who directs our membership to go where they need to go, 4 people perished in, say, South Surrey on an opioid deaths. There's an associated drug trafficking file number for that. They're gonna go and target that one. And we are aware that there's an illicit market, but we have bigger issues, and that's what we tend to target. So there are methods for us to tackle the illegal shops. If they ever materialize, we can do that. We know that the ministry has the community safety unit. They're directly involved in, I think both legal and illegal shops are the ones who are doing the inspections. We leave a lot of it to them. If need be, we can action even legal stops. Like, it's not uncommon for a sanctioned alcohol distribution place, a liquor store to be selling to minors. That does happen. We can action that. We can action that again when it comes down to cannabis shops. So to cut it short, our position, as long as it's lawful and licensed and following what the current rules are, we're not openly targeting them. We're not going to have much issue. When you look at the current handbook for your stores, it's 74 pages long. So as long as you guys adhere to those rules, we're good. You guys want to petition for those rules to change? I know you were mentioning the tinted windows and stuff. Go ahead, feel free to do that, and as long as it's changed in the book, you'll find no history for us. I did reach out to Mission, to Langley, to my compatriots who do police those areas, and I asked, quite frankly, are you seeing any problems with these stores? The answer is no. So our position, as long as we adhere to lawfully licensed, you shouldn't necessarily have to hear from us, and we do see the reason why the illicit market's still a problem. We'd love to be able to get to that, but fentanyl is a bit of a bigger issue right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other input from the audience? If you can go to the microphone, please.
Hello, my name is Colleen Kerr, and I'm the Manager of Community Safety Stakeholder Engagement here at the City of Surrey. And I think that my question flows quite well from the inspector. So I recently did some research. I'm also considered a CPTED expert. I teach it at post-secondary level, so that's crime prevention through environmental design. And I know that recently in the City of Vancouver, after an attempted robbery, the individual on the CCTV camera, it was evident that an individual was leaving the store at the moment that he entered. with his, either, I don't know if it was a fake gun or a real gun, but basically the fact that the opaque windows meant that he, as a criminal, often would not go into a premise if an individual is in there. And that's one of the challenges with the opaque windows, right? I've done some research on it, and my understanding is that provincially that has been changed, and that you don't have to opaque the windows, you just have to ensure that the product is not visible to minors, so it's under a countertop or whatever it is. But federally, that perhaps there's still a requirement for opaque windows. My understanding is that the City of Vancouver is also researching and trying to make a change to the opaque window challenge, because again, a bystander can't see what's happening inside there if there is something taking place as well. So from a SEPTED principle, the opaque windows are problematic, and I'm wondering, because I hear mixed reviews, I don't know what the provincial legislation is, how it looks currently in municipal bylaws as well as federally. It seems that there's a mismatch. Just wondered if you could clear that up.
Anyone want to respond to that? Yeah, go ahead.
Works. You're right. We actually, the provincial bylaw actually says that you're not allowed to see product from the outside. So really it was for youth, it was for the children. If you're walking by a retail store, they don't want them to see the product, which is kind of, so the easiest way to deal with it was the retailers decided to opaque the windows. You can't see it. City of Coquitlam is the only one that I'm aware of, because we have a store in Coquitlam, and through their intake process, they wanted to make sure that the windows were not opaque. So what we did was from a SEPTED perspective, we actually designed our store internally so that you can walk by our store and you will not see any product. So retailers, so we are able to do this, but it depends on again, the guardrails that are established by the local government. If they say this is what you want to achieve, in Delta, there's no issue. I mean, they just say you have to follow the LDB rule, and the LDB rule, the easiest way to follow it is to opaque the windows. Do we like it? No. We'd rather have our windows open. And I think it creates a better atmosphere, a safer atmosphere for our employees. It really does. So we agree with you that it should be clear, but we're also tasked with the other side, which is that you cannot see the product inside. So then we have to establish stores in a manner that you don't see that.
Any other feedback from the audience to include in the recording? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name's David. A couple of guys up there know me, and I come at this from a very, very different perspective. I think we've been let down at all three levels. I'm a Surrey resident. I'm a cannabis educator. I've been involved in this for 10 years, and I got involved because of medical issues within my family. I've seen a huge transition on what's going on. On a federal level, we have a government that's legalised it, which is a good thing. But the positive thing is we're not locking people up for being in possession of cannabis now. But they really legalised it like they didn't really want to. Our provincial government, I feel, let down because what they did is they're trying to control it through the distribution board, and I disagree with that. Then on municipal level, here I am as a Surrey resident and taxpayer. I had a previous administration that didn't even want to legalise it, which is just a disgrace. I hope they can make progress on this at the municipal level, but they can't even decide who should be doing our law enforcement at the moment, so I don't hold a great hope out for that. My question here is just to look a little bit further. I think we should have stores here within Surrey, and we need a significant number of them, and I completely agree with what you said about that. But I'd like to know the board's opinion of consumption sites, because we need locations where people can consume this. We tend to get hung up on opaque windows and not opaque windows. Nobody can explain to me what the harm is to a child who sees cannabis. If they see it, what will happen to them? What are the harms? It's absolute nonsense. Please listen to yourself. I know you're protecting children in school. What are you protecting them from? You get the same level of harm from seeing a cannabis bud in a store that you get from seeing a rose bush. it's about the same level of harm to the child. If they see a rose bush, they're not going to die. It's not going to send them down the wrong path. But my question is really about consumption stores. Where does Surrey go with that? And the pressure will come onto the council to make these decisions, but they need to do it from an enlightened perspective. Please don't get hung up on the stigma. Thank you.
Anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think, thank you for that. I think on-site consumption, has a tremendous opportunity. I think Surrey can definitely take the lead on that. It's a new development, along with Farmgate and direct distribution. This was part of the regulatory reform we've been advocating for since legalization's inception. And when you look at established markets in the United States, for instance, you see tremendous economic benefit, you see tremendous public health and safety benefit. Again, for new consumers coming into the cannabis market, having a safe space where they can consume and get educated is incredibly important to the community experience in general. It also drives additional revenue opportunities for retailers. Again, everyone thinks that we're all flush with cash here in the cannabis industry. We're very, normal margins, just like a lot of other retailers, subject to even more taxation and regulatory regime that add expense and complexity. So, offering ancillary licensing opportunities for retailers, I think would be a wonderful opportunity. I think when you look at Colorado and California and Nevada, you look at cafes and theaters and things like that, the intersectionality with cannabis can drive tremendous economic revenue, tax benefits, jobs. And again, you look at the threat that tertiary industry is under to evolve and diversify. I think on-site consumption represents a tremendous opportunity, and I think the City of Surrey could take a tremendous leadership role on that.
Thank you.
I have a comment on that. So we are partners with the Songhees First Nation, and on their traditional lands, we are looking at establishing a government-to-government deal, whether through Section 119 or creating a pathway for them as a government to allow for consumption spaces on their traditional territories. So I think this is a great opportunity for the First Nations to look at this as an opportunity for consumption lounges to create a space where people can gather and can consume cannabis. Currently, you're only allowed to do it at home, and that too, your neighbors are not liking it too much. So we need to create a safe space, just the way a safe space for us to buy it. There needs to be a safe space to consume it. And I think currently, in the current regime and the way the system works, First Nations have that opportunity as they have the right on their land.
So I'm going to leave it there. I really urge audience members to email the Surrey Board of Trade, info@businessinsurrey.com, if you have any input, any comments that would be useful to the City of Surrey as they're going down this path. Please email us. Thank you so much for attending this morning. Thank you so much to our panel. A round of applause. And our co-presenting sponsors, A Little Bud and Inspired Cannabis, our supporting sponsors, Platinum Projects, Mission Cannabis, and of course our community sponsors, Seed to Stone. We are looking forward to a cannabis industry in Surrey and to make Surrey an opportunity city. Thank you so much for joining us today.